The largest organ of elimination is the skin. Your skin has millions of little mouths. If you were to look at it under a microscope, you'd see all the tiny little holes. Dr. Kellogg, very famous doctor, he's of Kellogg's cornflakes fame, although I think that he would nearly die if he could see what Kellogg's cornflakes are made of today. It didn't quite have the sugar in it that he had in his. But he wrote many books on health. He was the medical director of one of the largest natural hospitals in America, Battle Creek, 1,000 beds. So he wrote many books on it. He called the pores of the human body millions of little sewers. Why did he call them millions of little sewers? Because they give off waste. They're an organ of elimination. Have you ever had a white shirt on, especially on a hot day when you're perspiring a lot and the collar is brown? What's the brown? It's dirt. Where did the dirt come from? Inside of you. So the skin is a very effective organ of elimination. To be an effective organ of elimination, it has certain needs. It requires you to allow your skin to breathe. Is two sadly very common diseases today called psoriasis and eczema. Eczema is usually the name given for a baby or a child, and psoriasis is usually the name given to the skin disease in the latter years. When I say latter years, I don't mean the elderly years. I'm probably meaning latter past teenage years. So getting into the 20s, 30s, 40s, it's often called psoriasis. And I've seen many people suffer extremely with this. And again, we need to know why. Because remember Newton's third law of motion, that to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. So as I go through this presentation, looking at some of the causes, I'm going to be using a couple of stories of people that have come across my path and the factors that came together to cause their psoriasis. And I'm also going to be, as I weave through these stories, show you how they totally conquered it. Did you hear that? Every case of psoriasis, eczema that I have come across, they have been able to conquer it. But I think what we'll do is we'll begin with the babies. So if a baby has psoriasis, I begin to investigate. I talked to the mother and I say to the mother, is the baby bottle fed? And if the baby is bottle fed, I inquire as to the type of milk the baby's on. And if the mother says it's on a cow's milk formula, then my suggestion is to change over to a goat's milk formula. I don't know about other countries, but I know in Australia you can buy some very nice goat milk formulas. In fact, I think 3 of my grandchildren were raised on the goat milk formulas, so you can get some very good ones. So go over to the goat milk formula, because an allergy to dairy is one of the big factors in the skin diseases. And if the mother is breastfeeding, then I inquire to the mother if the mother's having dairy. Another factor can be wheat, the hybridized wheat. We looked at that in an earlier lecture, how the wheat was hybridized in the 1950s. So it created a structure in the protein or the gluten part of the wheat that is very, very difficult to fully break down for the body. And if it's not fully broken down by the body, it gets into the blood, then antibodies are created and you get this whole reaction in the body, and it's one of the contributing factors to eczema. So I'll give you the story of one lady, and she said, yes, I am having wheat, yes, I am having dairy. Refined sugar, she said, no, I don't have refined sugar. Peanuts can be another factor. So I suggested she have the almond milk instead of the peanut butter. So almond butter instead of peanut butter, and almond or organic soy milk instead of dairy milk. And for the wheat, I said initially it would be good to go off all bread. Now once the baby's eczema is conquered, you could start with the ancient grain breads, but initially to stop all breads. So she can eat rice, she can eat millet and buckwheat. There are many grains she could eat. After 1 month, the mother sent me a picture and the baby still had patches of eczema on it. The baby was about 8 months of age. And I said, please keep going. Please don't give up, because a slice of bread can be out of your body within 24 hours, but the effect can remain for even up to 2 months. At 2 months, I get an email with photographs of a baby with no eczema. She said, thank you so much. I didn't realize, and of course most people don't realize it. And there are ladies that are breastfeeding their babies and they're eating dairy and they're eating wheat and their baby doesn't have eczema. I find that when a situation arises in the body, there can be many factors. Many factors. That's why these 8 laws are used as the investigators. Are they having fresh air? And another lady told me that her baby developed eczema when they went into a new house. And when we investigated in the house, the little cot where her baby slept, there was black mold. Now, it wasn't there when she first put the cot there, but they found out there was a leaking tap behind the wall, and because the cot was nestled into the corner and had the bedding in there, they never saw it. Another lady told me that her baby developed eczema after they'd moved into a new house, and the baby was always sick. So I suggested that they go to the real estate and find out if the house was sprayed. Sometimes houses are sprayed with strong chemicals just before the person moves in, and she found that that was the case. And the baby felt it more than anyone because the baby was crawling down on the floor, and the baby had no eczema until they'd gone into that house. So that's a fairly obvious connection. So it could be chemicals, it could be mold. These can be contributing factors. Definitely there's usually an inherited factor, but remember, genetics loads the gun, but it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So you can have a whole family move into a house that has just been sprayed with chemicals not long before, and the crawling baby will feel it more because they're crawling on the floor. And the parents didn't realize the danger because they thought, wow, this is a great floor. It's a wooden floor, which means it will be healthy, but then one also has to investigate were there chemicals in the lacquer that was used to paint the floor. So there are many factors that come in. That's why we should all be private investigators investigating why these things are so. So let's move on to the adults. But before I go on to the adults, I'll just have one more story. And it was a guest that came to our health retreat about 3 years ago. She said, my grandson had eczema, and my daughter took him to a pediatrician, and this pediatrician was known to be more on the natural side. He wasn't ready to do drugs like others may be. And the pediatrician said to her daughter, remember the daughter of the guest that was with us, stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar, peanuts and oats. Isn't it nice to hear that there are pediatricians who are recognising the role that the food has to play? She said, my son totally recovered from his eczema. And that, she said, that's, as you have just explained, it took about 2 months. If the baby doesn't recover in 2 months, then you would investigate a mold factor or a chemical factor could come into.
The FDA's authority over the safety of baby lotion. First, can the FDA require a review of baby lotion for safety before it comes to market?
No, we cannot.
Can the FDA require the manufacturer not to use a toxic ingredient, for example, formaldehyde, in its baby lotion?
No.
Is the manufacturer required to register with the FDA before selling its baby lotion?
No.
So I think my first statement is becoming truer. Once the baby lotion comes to market, can the FDA require safety information about the baby lotion?
No.
If the baby lotion has caused bad reactions in the babies, can the FDA require a recall?
No.
If the manufacturer is aware of the baby's bad reactions, would the manufacturer be required to report that to the FDA?
No.
Well, I think everybody's paying rapt attention here. In our country today, could cosmetic products for sale to use on children or infants with unknown ingredients and no safety review. If the product is dangerous, the FDA would not be able to require a recall. You already said that. Obviously, we need to, I think, empower the FDA to do more to protect Americans. I mean, given all the no's that you just...
So the house is officially out of body butter. So I'm just going to whip us up a fresh batch real quick because we don't use that store-bought lotion and stuff. I like to know what's seeping into my skin. This mango butter is so fire, y'all. And then I'm just going to use the last of my calendula oil that I have. Ooh, look how creamy that texture is. And I love the mango butter in the summer and the spring, the warm weather, because it's so light, airy, and fluffy. Look at that. Yes. And then I'm going to add some essential oils to make it smell real good. And for the healing properties, we do not use fragrance oil over here, only essential oils. And look at this. Ooh, we should be good for a minute. Now, this is just for personal use, but you can get your freshly made body butter on the website.
So be careful what you're putting on the skin because it can inhibit its ability to breathe, and it can also inhibit its ability to throw off waste. And the skin also absorbs. Another reason why we should be careful what we touch. I was consulting with a lady, she was only in her early 40s, who'd had a stroke. So I was immediately intrigued, why did she have a stroke? She's a chemist or a pharmacist, and she was from one of the Caribbean islands, and she said she mixes all the tablets up together with bare hands. So the chemicals from the tablets are all going into her hands. The same thing happened, I met a vet once, a vet nurse, and she did the same thing, and she had major liver problems. You see, the skin absorbs, so one must be very careful as to what one touches and also what one puts on their skin.
Health Boss, did you know when you cut the tip of a plantain that there's actually an oily residue that builds up? Now, if you're struggling with acne or skin blemishes, you can actually put that oily residue on the acne, on the zit, and it will dry it up. You're welcome.
I'm going to show you guys my grandmother's recipe on how to make her rice water. I'm going to get 2 cups of rice, 2 cups because I'm going to make a lot. You want to get cold water and rinse. The first rinse, you're not going to keep, so you want to kind of rinse that really good and then pour that out. Rinse and pour it out again. This is your third rinse. And this is what we're going to keep. And then I'm just going to kind of swish it around a little bit with my hands, kind of like getting the rice and kind of like you're washing it with your hands. And you're going to do this for just a few seconds, maybe a minute. I like to kind of get my water to be like a little cloudy. And then you don't have to let it soak. My grandma said that she did not ever let it soak overnight or 10 minutes. They just did this and then they poured it into a bowl and used it because they didn't really store it back then. Now you're gonna pour it into a mason jar or whatever jar that you have to store it.